Live.
Hi, good night, everyone. Thank you guys for coming here to this meeting with the Young Democrats, where we're going to be talking about mental health. On the esteemed panel, we have the Vice President of the Young Democrats, Shaquani Hunt. We have trained psychologist Kirsan Hurdle, as well as myself, Lashana Griffith. I am the Secretary of the Young Democrats. Shaquani, over to you. Seems to be a bit of a technical difficulty. Shakwani, can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, please, we can.
Okay. What I was saying previously is that I was praying and I was thanking God for bringing us all here tonight and letting everybody know that He gave us an opportunity to speak on mental health today. And we hope that we do it justice. In Jesus' name, amen. Lashon, I'm going to hand back over to you so you can jump right in because everyone was waiting already.
Okay, so thank you guys for joining us. As I said, this is the Young Democrats meeting where we're going to be discussing mental health, especially as it pertains to COVID-19. We have the trained psychologist, Kirsan Hurdle, who will be speaking to us. Mental Health Month is for the month of May from the 1st to the 31st. So let's get the questions going. The first question is, in Barbados, mental health is still seen as a taboo topic. There is still the retort that the psychiatric hospital is drinkings. There is still the notion that if you're going for therapy, that something has to be wrong with you, mentally, and that you're quote unquote mad. Christian, with what would you say to that, and how do you think Barbados can go about ending the stigma as it relates to mental health and mental illnesses that persons may have?
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thanks for having me. If we didn't think or if we didn't realize it before, we now realize that mental health affects us all. Most persons are familiar with stress. Most persons are familiar with, have experienced some levels of anxiety, and also maybe a lesser extent or an even greater extent, depression. And I think more than any other time in my lifetime, I've been hearing of the effects of mental health during this COVID pandemic. And not only has the stress of the isolations, layoffs, and job cuts, and the general difficulty because of the economic space affected us, but we are also seeing the effects of persons having to be limited in their movement and not be able to engage in social events and recreational events as they would have been accustomed to previously. And so it's really recognizing how significant mental health issues are, where persons are experiencing an increase in those cases, as I mentioned, depression, anxiety, stress, and the rise as well is insomnia. There have been increases of insomnia, but then we're also seeing, I guess you can call it Sahelic issues, where persons have been experiencing different types of emotional issues, including domestic violence as a result of the COVID pandemic. And children aren't exempt from that. So we are definitely seeing an increase in the load on our mental health capacity, on our emotional capabilities, and our ability to just manage the different challenges, financial, social, emotional challenges that we are all having. I think that mental health definitely needs more attention. Sure, we've been seeing a lot more of it, but we at the psychiatric hospital, they have been, and I'm currently working there. They've been trying to get the word out about how we can help to manage the stressors on our minds and our emotions. Because, of course, when there's economic costs to health issues, and that does not exempt or that includes mental health. Of course, if persons aren't well, they take leave from work, they aren't able to function efficiently and effectively. And of course, that means that there is an impact on the country and on workplaces economically. Of course, where there are children involved, there's a concern to parents. Where there's parents and adults involved, there's an impact on children. And we definitely ought to pay more attention to how are we really managing our mental health? What options do we have? And I think we'll be getting into more of that as we go on in this discussion.
Yes, please, agreed. And you mentioned in your introductory remarks a lot of food for thought. But my question to you is, you mentioned COVID-19 and how it has been a toll on persons. First thing first, what would you say to someone who it has been a toll for them, COVID-19, you know, the massive job loss. Then on top of that, now you have the hike in food prices. Then you also have to look for back to school clothes for your son or daughter or your child of ward if they're going back to school. And then you still have that stress of being unemployed and maybe your job hunting. Well, you have all of that to deal with, you know? So what tips would you have to someone who is struggling to cope with COVID-19 at this point?
Well, it definitely is difficult, no lie about that. I think taking it one day at a time is important, taking it one moment at a time. Perhaps we have heard about mindfulness, where we are just in the moment. We are paying less attention to what's happening in the future, what tomorrow, what next week will be like, what last week was like. Just trying to stay as much as present in the moment. It's important to, as we are now opening back up, try to get in recreational activities that can help to distract the mind or take the mind away from activities that we can see, activities around us, so that we can engage more regularly to ease the tension, to vent, to get out the stress. So social spaces, recreational spaces are opening back up. You have to be creative. We definitely have to be creative in ways of earning revenue. Perhaps going back to community-based jobs where we're doing small entrepreneurial type business or ways of earning revenue, you know, doing kitchen garden to raise money, to earn income. Obviously, it's important to also develop that sense of community where you're helping out persons in the community. It's important to give back and to be helping other people. Where we see someone in the community or family or friend in need, where we can share with them where it is possible. And of course, we've got to chunk down and take small pieces at a time. I think very often people try to, as they say, eat the whole elephant. Very often people try to think about all the problems at one time that they want to solve. And it's difficult to solve problems when we can't see the next step. So I encourage my clients, and I always encourage persons to do, is write down a list of your options. Write down a list of things that you can do, things that are within your control. What are things that are within your control? Start writing, because you're not always going to be able to remember things. So as you write down things, maybe ideas will come to you. Brainstorm with family or friends if it is possible, so that you're not keeping all the you're not blindsided or blind spot. You don't have blind spots, but your limited vision is useful sometimes to get other people in on the brainstorming with you, but definitely take it one step at a time and very small chunks at a time. So what's the next step? What can I do today? What is within my control? Those are questions that we definitely have to ask ourselves, in addition to things like leisure activities, going to the beach, exercising. There is never not a time for exercising and leisure activities.
Okay. You mentioned a lot there, but I want to stick a pin for now, Chrisanne, and I want to let the Vice President of Young Democrats, Shaquani Hunt, she wanted to touch on how she copes in the COVID-19 environment, and then we'll go back to pick up on where you left off. All right?
Sure.
Okay. Shaquani, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Lashana. The reason I wanted to mention how I cope with, well, how I'm coping currently with COVID-19 and what I do. Well, me personally, I paint. That is my go-to. In my free time, I pick up my canvas, I draw something, I paint, or I'm teaching somebody how to paint. And the reason I find that it really relaxes me is because there's nothing, no one can say that I'm doing it wrong. There's no wrong way to paint. There's no mistakes. There's no way that you can do it incorrectly. You're just having fun. And if there's an error, I just paint it over. And for me, that is how I see life at this time. We don't know what we're going to wake up and see tomorrow. We might be locked down. We might not be locked down. We might be outside. So it's like one brush stroke at a time. That is how I cope with it. And I think painting for me is how I'm getting through currently with COVID-19 and being locked down inside. Thank you very much, Lashana.
You're welcome. Chrisanne, you mentioned that you can't eat the elephant at one time, or as Beatrice would say, one kill brown cow. How can persons go about, doing those small steps to sustain their mental health and also to sustain their mental faculties as they take in everything that's been happening since the event of COVID-19 in Barbados?
Okay, what are some little things that we can do? Once again, I really like to get people started on chunking pieces and writing things down. So we look at the different aspects of our life. Of course, we look at physical first, physical and survival. So what are the physical things we can do? What exercise? She mentioned painting. Those are physical things you can do. You can talk to a friend. You can go outside and spend time in nature. You can do kitchen gardening. You can buy something that you can resell. You can sell something maybe in community, sell drinks, and of course there may be some difficulties in terms of the permits for being able to sell food. But notice what things are around you that you can sell that don't require a health certificate, so that you can start perhaps earning some kind of income, right? So physical things, exercise, engaging in physical activity, and earning revenue. Then there's also emotional, so things like listening to music. I've developed a playlist, and I encourage clients to develop playlists. Where there are playlists for every mood. There's soca playlists, and thanks to the Saturday parties, we really been stay-at-home parties, really been enjoying them. Or some persons have been enjoying them. We can develop that playlist. We can watch movies. People find
Hello, Mr.
some
Hurdle.
people find comedy to be very useful. So entertainment and music help with the emotions. Speaking to someone, if it is possible to speak to someone, reaching out for psychological help, whether it is a counselor, a psychologist, a therapist, a pastor, a friend. These are all good sources of encouragement. Find someone who can encourage you, that can lift your mood. Perhaps there's that person in your life that uplifts you, that inspires you, that makes you to, that helps you to feel better about yourself. want to spend more time in that mental and emotional space, things that give you good feelings, that make you feel good, right? That's emotionally dealing with your feelings and your thoughts. And then, of course, spiritually, perhaps you are a person who is into prayer and into spiritual practice, reading your Bible or reading your focusing on your spiritual activities, meditation, prayer, and really seeking God or your Creator's guidance in terms of how He can help you or how He can guide you to get through these situations. So I like to break down the different aspects of life. There's physical, there's emotional, and mental. There's spiritual, financial. We mentioned earning small ways of earning revenue, continuing to job hunt. Looking at those groups on Facebook and online where you can looking for CV writing and job opportunities. Those are all opportunities, small things that we can do, listening to music, etc. And I hope that helps.
Okay, my next question to you would be that we have seen with the advent of COVID-19 that there have been an increase in suicides to some young males. Do you think that there is a correlation between young males committing suicide and the way that they're raised, not to be emotive because it's seen as being sissy? And then when you add the pressures of losing your job as the breadwinner, it could lead to one deciding to take their life as means to end?
Well, we know that in our society, actually around the world, because I studied in the UK, and in around the world, male suicide, in different territories, male suicide is trending to be higher. Sure, in Barbados, men aren't as open to sharing their feelings and dealing with issues on their mind. They aren't as expressive. They don't like to make themselves vulnerable. They generally don't tend to open up and share their feelings and reach out for help. One definite challenge is males don't tend to reach out for help because there's ego, we need to be strong, we don't want to be vulnerable, we don't want to be seen as weak. And there's bravado, I can do this, I'm the boss, I am strong. And so that strength says, I can't be weak, reach out. And so there's a lot that we definitely ought to do for men, helping men and encouraging men to share their feelings. Definitely also as females, because women have a lot have a part to play in the socialization of young men, in the bringing up of young men. Most of our families, well, many of our families are women-led, female-led. And so I think moms have a responsibility, moms and mother figures have a responsibility to encourage their young men to share their feelings. Women really have an encouragement, and also to find male figures or lead them in the direction of male figures that they can talk to. Because a man would not necessarily like to share his feelings with a woman. Obviously, he's going to feel small. He's going to feel like, again, vulnerable to someone who might not see as, some might say, they might not see as an equal. So what we can do is encourage men to speak. Of course, setting up resource and support groups. I know there is men's empowerment and network support. I think that's the name of it. I could be corrected. Fabian Sargent, and he has a good thing going there. Of course, there's also MISA, but we definitely have to encourage men to be more open, see getting help as not being weak, but opportunity to be strong. Imagine if you're vulnerable, and you yourself, if you feel vulnerable in a situation, the ability to press through or to get through that situation, which seems to be weakening you, actually makes you stronger. If you are going to be able to press through a debilitating or vulnerable situation, makes you feel stronger. So let's not see it any longer as a source of weakness, but be able to get our feelings out. So it's not weak to talk, it's actually a position of strength to do so.
One question has came in already. Someone asked, how can we break that stigma that men have, that they must be strong all the time and that they are not allowed or permitted to be weak and to have feelings, which is crazy to think about, that a man has to decide not to have feelings to prove he's a man.
All right. So of course, how we are socialized, the boy child may be encouraged to not cry when he falls down. The boy child is encouraged, let's just say generally, not to cry. He's the strong one. He's the physically strong one. And he's emotionally strong by keeping everything inside. And while being vulnerable and expressing emotions has to be balanced with, staying in control, we definitely have to realize that there's a time where it's important to express our feelings. It's not only useful to express our feelings when we're angry. It's not only useful to express our feelings when we're frustrated or when we're horny, having sexual feelings. It's also important to express our feelings when we are struggling to deal with the situation, when we feel vulnerable, when there's anxiety, when there's depression, when we feel like I can't do it alone. I don't need to be the strong. Encouraging people, you don't need to be the strong one. We are here for you. We are a team. We are a support group for you. On the block, the guys encourage each other to be, the dog, the thug, the strong one. You don't do them kind of things. How can we encourage guys? Reach out. Let's talk about our issues first of all. Let's talk about our issues. Let's talk about the issues that we want to hide below the carpet. Or education, how we feel about being raised in female-led households. How do we feel? How do we feel expressing emotions? How do we feel about the fact that we are struggling with jobs? How do we feel that there's the world of pressure to be the breadwinner? Support groups and encouraging conversations where males can express their feelings, and of course, women and females in men's life, have to encourage them to get their feelings out and not just to be strong and in control and the dominant ones. It's okay to talk.
Okay, agreed. Do you think that we need to have more programs both on the NGO as well as governmental side to aid men in having the safe spaces that they can speak about their issues?
Certainly. I think when we're looking at gun violence, when we're looking at domestic abuse, the perpetrators seem to be in the majority men. And targeting men is necessary at this point. I think we can no longer sit back and expect that the situation will change unless we address it. The fact that we have a school system where for most of my classes, when I was going to school, primary and secondary, there were more girls in the classes than boys. And most of the teachers were women. Now, as a psychologist, most of the psychologists and counselors and helpers are also women. Where are the men and what are they doing? Why aren't they picking up the slack? Why aren't they coming forward? Aren't they feeling empowered? We definitely need to focus on men a lot more. We definitely need to look at how people are, the discussions that we're having. We can have discussions through sports. We can have discussions through the arts. We can have sit-down discussions which tend to be less preferred and less engaging. We can go to them where they're at through sports. We can, I remember the Aganar program. I know that there are programs, and there's Teen Challenge, I'm not sure where that is. There's a program called Combined Faith. there's a need for more programs where we engage guys on the block, with sports and the arts. And if we can have more of these activities like men's MENS, I think again, men's network and men's
Yes.
education or empowerment network services, something like that. And
Yeah, you're
Lisa,
correct.
exactly.
You're correct.
With the sergeant, we definitely need to encourage and bring these programs to the fore to get men where they are.
Agreed. We have a question from a member of the press. Some women in single parent families put pressure on their son to be the father and husband they never had as well, which is additional pressure on them. And men do need there's a little error here. Men do need a place where they can discuss things and a shelter in case they're facing domestic abuse issues, as there's currently no shelter for males. We fail to recognize that there are women who are abusers as well. What does Mr. Hurdle say to this?
I recognize some of these patterns. Where women, men being the victims of domestic abuse, where men being the victims of sexual abuse, where boys are being abused in their households by their father figures or even by their mothers. It's a real issue. Yes, there are no shelters. I know there are, I mentioned before that there are programs out there. I think, as I mentioned before, we're not going to get men to come out and to participate in activities that are led and are initiated by women. I think one of the turn-offs for men, let's be real, and I used to play cricket, I was engaged in sports. One of the turn-offs for males is a psychological and sometimes unconscious turn-off, and sometimes they talk about it. You know, how can we be led and guided by a woman? We can't learn about being a man from a woman, right? And so first of all, the programs need to be reaching men where they are. That's the first thing. Second thing, they need to be male-led. So looking even at the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts has had a crisis where there's a significant reduction in men, where there are no female leaders. As far as shelters and places of protection for men, we have to reach out to them where they are first. I think that's the first place to start. Or if we are developing programs, they have to be in a safe space where men are going to be allowed to share their feelings without women looking in and looking on. But of course, these things have to be led by men, even if they're female initiated, even if there are women in the background, because there are women tend to initiate change. I think that men need to be in the forefront of pushing them. How do we get men discussing their issues and dealing with issues? Men have to do it. Men have to be in the forefront. And it's only going to change when we start to develop support groups, whether it's shelters or whether they're sports or arts-led programs. But men have to be in the forefront of it. With answer to your question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurdle. Another question is, what is the significance of knowing oneself as it relates, to mental health?
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Mental health is a part of the bigger picture of health. And the World Health Organization, they speak to health as not the absence of disease, but the ability to function, the degree to which one can function and be a contributing member of society. And by extension, mental health is about being emotionally and psychologically balanced. Knowing yourself is important because a a lot of the time, well, there are many issues which start from situations where persons are traumatized, where they've been abused, and there are oftentimes identity issues, identity crises, identity conflicts. And when people talk about knowing yourself, the question of who am I, right? Who am I and what am I here for? In certain issues with both anxiety and depression, those are questions, existential questions, and psychological questions that people ask. What's the point of living? What's the point of trying? What contribution can I make in terms of the world around me? What contribution do I make to my family, to my household? What's the point of continuing? But knowing yourself, what you are passionate about, what empowers you, what you want to say turns you on, what motivates you, what you find yourself gravitating towards that gives you inspiration and makes you feel lighter and happier. What are the things that balance you? Those are all questions which come into the conversation of identity, and it's important to know yourself where those are concerned. Know yourself in terms of what you are doing, what you're capable of, self-efficacy, and what are the things that motivate you. Very, very important.
Okay. My question to you is, in order to find out who you are, and what you stand for, there needs to be a catalyst. What would you suggest for persons who may not know what their catalyst is, and they're just quote unquote wandering through the wind trying to find that motivation? What would you say to them?
Begin searching. Notice certain patterns. And I like to say, write them down. Just leave them to memory. Notice certain patterns. I encourage clients and just people generally, I encourage persons to take half hour 2 or 3 times a week. Be quiet and just brainstorm. Just observe certain patterns of your week, your day, of your week, of the past month, of the past year, in terms of things you've been doing. Write them down. Again, what are the things that you find that makes you talk? What are the things that inspire you to conversation? What are the problems that you want to see solved? What are the things that you find yourself arguing about? The things that you find yourself defending? What are the things that bring life and energize you, whether it's football or community issues or certain academic issues or seeing people be in a better place? What are the things that bring you to life? Those are the questions that I would encourage them to ask themselves, the things I would encourage them to notice about themselves and about their patterns. So take a moment, 1, 2, 3 times a week, half hour, an hour, to just brainstorm what has been happening in your life, what you've been doing, what you find yourself gravitating towards, and you will begin to find those answers. It's also useful to speak to someone, even if you're not going to a professional, maybe a friend, who you can bounce these ideas off of. And you find that a second party or third party, getting other people involved, helps to clear up blind spots. Because seeing it from our position, we often develop blind spots. So ask questions of friends around us. Bounce the ideas over for people that we engage with regularly. See what they say as well. You're muted. You're muted.
Oh, I was saying apologies for the delay. I was asking if you guys could hear me because I wasn't hearing the latter part. We have some questions here. 1 minute. All right. Member from the, sorry, apologies. Message from a member of the media. Would you say COVID itself has been used as an excuse for abuse? For example, if you live in a household where people are paranoid about it, is it possible that paranoia can create problems for you? Question from the member of the.
I'm hearing kind of two different questions. Is there an excuse for abuse? There's never an excuse for abuse. And in terms of, you should always get help, whether you try to reach out anonymously. Always try to get help. There's never an excuse for abuse, even if it is that you are getting some benefit from the abuser, whether it is financial benefits or accommodation. There's some struggles that you will have to fight through. There are some things that won't be solved immediately. Of course, people are met with the dilemma of, if I don't live here, or if this person doesn't help me, I don't know where my help will come from. And these are dilemmas and always difficult situations that sometimes there is no easy and quick fix to. But in terms of paranoia, I don't know. Well, could you repeat the question? Could you repeat that question where paranoia came in?
Okay, no problem. Certainly. The question was, they said, for example, if you live in a household where people are paranoid about it being COVID, is it possible that their paranoia can create problems for you, the individual?
Okay. If you are paranoid, there might be a reason for that. There's some fear. There is some belief that is at the root of the paranoia, an emotion that is at the root of the paranoia. So there is a question of, is this a legitimate fear? Is it something that I can control? Is it something that I have control over? I know that people can find themselves being afraid of different things. I get people who come to me for attacks, and people come to me for phobias and that kind of stuff. Of course, some mental health issues might involve levels of paranoia and inability to avoid or to ignore certain situations or certain cues or triggers. But COVID is no excuse for abuse. And if a person finds themselves being abused, if a person finds themselves being paranoid, they definitely ought to look into whether it is getting help from a professional or someone else. What's the emotion below or the emotion at the root of the paranoia, if it is valid, and if there's something that they can do to gain greater control. Because at the end of the day, all mental health issues or mental health illnesses are about the lack of control. And if there's anything that a mental health professional, a counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist is supposed to be helping their client do, is to gain greater control and greater freedom and recognizing options. And the challenge with paranoia is that we are blindsided to the options we have. We are blindsided to what we can do differently, how we can ignore or avoid the situation. But if abuse is a part of the situation, then it's really not acceptable. And that is something that would definitely need to be addressed on its own.
Oh, sorry about that. We have some questions coming in. Before we get to the rest of the questions, I am being told by the tech team that we have someone who is actually a nurse that specializes in mental health on the line, and he may want to share his retort to the previous question. Sir, are you on the line? Hello. You have to unmute your microphone, sir, if you're here to make your comment. Okay, haven't heard, not hearing him.
If I may, one
Okay,
thing
I'm
that
not hearing him. So I will move on. Yes.
If I may, one thing that we definitely have to begin to normalize and bring to the fore is the importance of, I think we mentioned briefly about stigma before. People think that because you're reaching out for help or mental health issue, that you're mad. And that's something that, especially now that I am involved in this work, I am definitely always looking forward to opportunities where I can encourage, especially men, who not see it as a vulnerability. You're not mad. And of course, the whole idea is gaining greater control. So what if people say that you are mad because you are trying to gain control of your problem? Is it more beneficial to be a slave or a captive to the issue, the anxiety, to the depression, to the addiction? Or is it more important for you to gain control? Reach out. There are a lot more resources and professionals now available to us. And the result of reaching out for help brings a person to a place of balance. They're a better contributor to their family and to their society. The naysayers who might say that you are crazy or that you are wrong to reach out for help, some of those people are struggling with internal conflicts. Some of those people themselves are afraid of reaching out for help. And I think the strong ones is those people who can show that they are resilient, will be able to reach out for help, and who do get help when they implement the strategies that they are taught when they engage in mental health services or counseling or therapy. So it's really not a weakness, it's really a strength. And we definitely have to encourage people to take control in the same way that they take control of their physical health, take control of their mental health, because it does affect all areas of our lives. It affects our productivity, their physiological or psychosomatic manifestations or presentations, where people can get sick, blood pressure, problems, all kinds of different anxiety issues, insomnia. So they're oftentimes physical presentations of mental health or emotional issues. And that is a greater, I think, motivation to get help and to reach out for help, gaining control.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering that question. There is another question that we have here. Young people may feel pressured. Sorry, trying to read the question. Young people feel the pressure to succeed before they're 25. So we have many persons turning to OnlyFans as they're seeing it as okay. Can the pressure of a young person succeeding turn to them doing things that are a bit devious or out of what they would normally do, as Means said?
All right, let's connect the idea of stigma to that. All right, peer pressure is at the root of stigma. Peer pressure is at the root of feeling inadequate most times, many times, right? And we struggle with peer pressure from as early as primary school, even as early as nursery, where any social unit, any unit we're in, there is a pressure or there is encouragement to conform with the norms, whether those norms could have dysfunctional implications or whether those norms are beneficial. There's always a pressure to conform to what others around us are doing. And of course, if we are associated with persons who are going to be engaging in less than ideal situations, whether it is the block or whether it's in the workplace, whether it is a family unit, we definitely are encouraged to, as we always say, rise above those situations. It takes, of course, a level of judgment and self-evaluation to know what is right and what is wrong. It takes a level of self-esteem and courage and strength to decide, I am going to go upstream, I'm going to do the other thing. And we also have to be motivated to do it. What are the benefits of doing it? But I think things like, well, you mentioned there are those um, nefarious or negative alternatives that people are turning to. Many times they're for not just for social social comments and social likes, but it's also for revenue, for earning money. And of course, people are going to try different means for to earn money. Unfortunately, some people get into prostitution. Unfortunately, people get into drugs, violence. These are all measures that people take when they're struggling to deal with their current situation, and other means and alternatives that they find for escaping their situation. And it's important to have a sense of self, to have a sense of what you want to achieve and what are legitimate ways to achieve it without the negative consequences. So it's important to know who you are, to know what you are passionate about, but what are the consequences, consequential thinking for the actions you'll be taking down the line on your identity, on your reputation, on people's views of you in the future, especially if you're going to be going into public or leadership roles in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurdle. And Shaquani had something to say on that topic, so I'll hand over to her as well.
Thanks, Lashana. Why I wanted to jump in here, because for me as a young person, I am constantly staying online. To make it in life, you have to be an Instagram influencer. Like, you have to have a certain amount of followers. You have to post certain pictures for people to follow you. You have to not wear clothes for people to like your pictures. And then they're telling you now how you can make money from doing it. So everyone that's joining Instagram that's under the age of 16, they can do this. They're making it so easy for you to just show your body on the internet and telling you that is okay. I have nothing against people showing their bodies, but why is this the only job that can help me to earn 6 figures before I'm 25? Because that is how it's being sold online. We went from just being influencers on YouTube and Instagram to going into the whole bracket of having an OnlyFans account. Why did Instagram even need to put the pressure of having an account like that on Instagram? Because they're saying now, if you want to expose yourself, it's okay. We don't mind you showing your body, but you have to pay for it. It's like you're telling a majority of the users that use Instagram are teens or younger persons. So you're telling young people that it's okay to show your body. Before it was not okay. Before it was not okay if you decided you wanted to be a stripper, but now it's okay because it's just on the internet. You're just taking off your clothes and nothing will happen. We're not telling them anymore that once this video goes up, it's going to be on the internet forever, or you can never get away from this lifestyle, because even though you may be retired or you may take down your account, somebody may record your screen, record the screen where you're showing your body, exposing yourself, and then that is out there in the rest of the world forever. So after you have made your 6 figures and you have now decided, oh, you would like to start a business or go a different area, that will now be hanging over your head. And I think that they're not seeing the long-term effects of how that can really impact them, because for them it's a way to make money quickly. And because we have a lot of stars jumping on the bandwagon doing it as well, they're saying that it's okay. But for us as young people, I can't agree that it's okay, because yes, it is a way to make money, but is this the way that you want to make money, or is this the way you want to show younger people that they can make money? Because I can't agree that showing yourself or exposing yourself on the internet and being paid for it should be a way to make money. And I think we need to start letting the younger generation know that you do not have to have 6 figures by the time you're 25. You do not have to have a mansion. You don't have to have a car. It's okay not to have a job even. It's okay to still be finding yourself. It's okay to still be at school. It's okay to still live at home, because online we're constantly seeing people saying that, oh, you need to move up by this age. You need to have your life set up. By 30, you need to have a child. You need to have your second home, your third business. That is the selling point on the internet currently. And we need to start helping our children, start helping the youth of today to navigate how to not follow that pattern. Lashana, I'm going to let you go back over to Mr. Hurdle now.
Okay, that's fine. Before I go back to Mr. Hurdle, if I could touch on the latter part. Yesterday, I actually attended a workshop where we were discussing FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. And what you describe is generally what FOMO is. So FOMO really is, you feel as though you're missing out if you're not on Instagram showing your body. You feel as though you have missed out, and your anxiety goes up because you think that you are not at the point that you should be at 25, because Instagram is telling me that at 25, I should have my own home, I should have a car, should have these things. And if you don't have these things, it can lead to your anxiety. It can lead to you feeling like you're missing out on life. It could lead to you even having depression and these social withdrawal as well, because you have not fit into the mold of what social media is telling you should be. And I agree with you, Shaquani. It is something that we need to let young girls, young boys, and people in general know that Instagram is not the gospel. If you choose not to put your body up on social media, that is okay. If you don't have it together at 25, that's okay. If you don't have a job at 25, that is fine. But I think in the Caribbean society, if I could narrow in a bit, especially in Barbados, we have this notion, especially for young girls as well as young boys, that from the time you finish secondary school, you must have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, there is the pressure to have that plan in place. And should you not have that plan in place, you get all the pressure from family and friends saying, man, you was bright, what you doing, look for a job, but you don't get yourself together. And it could be that you're just figuring it out. But Mr. Hurdle, I will come over to you on those comments that we just raised. And then I'm seeing that Mr. Steve has also had some comments, and he is someone that will work directly with persons who have psychological conditions, and he will be able to share his expertise as well following Mr. Hurdle.
Right, so definitely, again, people are conscious and afraid of missing out. There are benefits to having money. There are benefits to, people want power, people want money, people want to be liked. And those are natural human, base human needs. So people don't want to be left out. And so we are also being socialized, or we are being brought up in the context of a community which is saying, you're conforming, you're supposed to conform to the norm. You're supposed to be like us. And so after being trained to be like us, to be like the community, then when we start to get pressure from the community to conform or to be like what everybody else is doing, people have a tendency to do it. You have to be strong not to do what the community is doing, what everybody else is doing, what your peers are doing. But in addition to that, there's also the fact that there are benefits. So I can get money, I can get paid for this, I can get attention. Well, I in that, I want a piece of that action, I want to be significant, right? So we want to be part of the action, we want piece of the pie, we want significance, we want control, we want power, we want reputation, and we join in. However, when we are operating on a values-based level, based on our values, based on the things that are significant to us, we see as significant, that we see as important to longevity, that make a difference, make a positive difference in our society. And most of the times, those things that we believe in that make a difference or tend not to be the things, well, positive difference, tend not to be those things like turning off your body and sometimes converge or diverge apart, separate from what the crowd is doing. Because we are often being encouraged to sit in and to be a norm, to be one in normal, to be in the middle. people are encouraged not to be extraordinary, not to be too good, right? So when you have opportunities to make more money and to be better than everybody else, of course, people want to latch on to them. So it's about being values-based or being values-led and consequential thinking. What are the consequences down the road for the actions I'm taking, even though it might feel good or give me good benefits? No. What are going to be the consequences down the road? Those are things be considered when we are making our here and now decisions.
Okay, I'm going to stick a pin there. Steve, are you on? Would you like to make your contribution?
Good night, everyone. Sorry to be late to the discussion. I have heard a lot so far. I don't even know where to start. Well, I will agree with what the gentleman would have said there when it comes to peer pressure and trying to fit in. But we live in a society now that everybody wants to fit in. Persons necessarily don't want to be on their own, or let's say be independently thinking for themselves. So if you don't have a strong value system, as the gentleman pointed out earlier, you can just always want to be in the crowd. But if you were taught from the time you were young to value your own opinion and spend time knowing yourself, what I heard the gentleman said earlier tonight, a lot of these problems that the young people face in today's society, they will never face. There was a time around the 90s, there were no social media, and young people cope fairly well. Yes, they had their challenges of the early 2000s, but there was no pressure via the world and other countries to fit in. They fit in their family structures, their community structures, and there wasn't a need to expose themselves for everybody to like them based on something called a like, or what is it called, no, TikTok. These little social
Yeah.
platforms that have got no, or your, yes, in a way, your family dictate to you how you're supposed to function within your family, your community, and in your country. But with I would say the advent of social media now and the lure of money and being a celebrity over doing these things on social media, young people now believe that this is something that they have to be a part of because money is the driving force behind most of these things. But to me personally, I think young people are basically challenged with a lot of problems because they don't know themselves. And so that could stem from one primary area, which is home, right? I think there we have a lot of young people having young people. They really truly know themselves. So everybody's just left out there to the world. If you understand where I'm coming from. So
Yes.
the latest fab probably let's call them no challenges. Everybody
Yes.
jumps on board to be a part of that and to be recognized to outshoot the other person. So everybody's doing the same thing, but everybody wants to do it better than the other person. So even sometimes when people get upset or depressed over somebody says something on social media, I personally never understood that because what you said on social media, you can't really tell me to my face, right? But people got depressed over these things because deep down inside, they never found the time or the energy to know themselves, who they wanted to be in society, right? I mean, society, yes, dictates what you should be, but if you spend time as a youngster growing, figuring out yourself as you grow, you can decide, okay, if you want to be a team player or you want to be somebody that independently thinking for yourself. And that way they have subgroups in society. They'll have persons that will believe I don't fit into the mainstream of society. I fit into this particular group. And then they start to find the identity in which they want to go in and find acceptance. So the young people now so confused. Most of the time they're looking for acceptance. And what do you get on social media? A like, a follow, let's call it no followers or something so. And that's what young people are looking for. They're just looking for somebody to
Yeah.
basically like them for who they are. So something that causes problems
Agreed.
between generations as well, because every generation view life differently. Because social media, which I believe is a brilliant marketing tool, have forced people to believe that they need to show the world everything. So that everything means I am at home today in my towel, I need to broadcast that. Or if I go to work today, I need to broadcast that. that is a marketing tool that young people need, that young people feed onto, to the point where they feel that, you know what, if my mommy don't like me, at least John that lives in South Africa give me a like and give me a level of comfort.
Mhm.
And that's what feeds some of these young people. But most of the time, a lot of people are shallow. That the harsh reality of it. A lot of these people, not only young people, but people in general that go on these social sites are very shallow. And then when reality gets it to them, they have this thing called a mental breakdown. The old people that say need a hard slap into reality and that's it. But if all young people deal with society now, they can't cope because they never had a substance funding themselves as they
Mhm.
age through life. That's my input on it. I said one of the guys said a lot of stuff that I could expand on, but I was just listening from a distance, so I did not hear your first call out to me at the time. Right,
Okay.
right.
That's no problem. But before you go, Steve,
Mhm.
the next question that I had, because I got a brief glimpse of your biography, is how is it for you as a mental health nurse working with persons who would have committed such grievous offenses? How do you maintain your mental health going to work every day?
Oh goodness, I don't know the best way. I say it's fitting. That's the best way I could say, because at the end of the day, I just tell persons, tell me, what does a murderer look like? What does a rapist look like? Do you have any idea?
I believe that they look human. I don't think they
Well,
have any
right,
defining
right,
factors.
right. Good. They look just like you and I. What makes a person does what he or she do, something comes down to a situation or yes, a mental issue, but some behaviors are learned, some, not all. You got drugs that be involved in certain persons' behaviors that cause them to do things that they normally would not do. I didn't use this simple example to some of my female friends. I would tell a female, I will let you in a park in the bra. They would get upset. Not me, I'm not a slut. You will never see me in that. And all I have to do is wait for the first Monday in August. And that same lady will be spinning her backside up and down Spring Garden. Same party and brawl situation. What have changed? Do you know?
I think the circumstance changed in that
You
is
start,
acceptable for crop over, but it was not acceptable in your private
but what made
conversation.
but what made it acceptable?
What
You
what
start to rationalize the
Mhm,
idea that everybody is doing it. Goes back to what the gentleman said all the time.
mhm.
Social norms. You justify your behavior because you look and so, because this person is doing it, I should do it. Certain
True.
behavior becomes normal for everybody if over time everybody's practicing the same behavior. It becomes a part of the social fabric, so nobody don't look and say that it is wrong. A couple years ago, for teenagers to be pregnant at 15, it was looked down upon. So many youngsters, females are doing it now, and young fathers and mothers, is like a social acceptance. Society gets away with things that they feel comfortable with, that the other person is going to say this is okay. So a lot of people say it is okay. You are as a person will do what you do. Right now, murder is not saying that acceptable, but in everybody's mind, if you have a child, you have a child, man.
Pardon me?
Do you have a child or a loved one?
I have loved ones, but I don't have
Okay,
any
right,
children,
right.
no.
So, but for example, I want to put you on the spot. But let's say you have a loved one that you love dearly, a child,
Mhm.
and you came home and you see a predator, male, raping, murdering your loved one. Chances are you're going to kill that person if you have no choice. Persons that see your situation will say, you know what? She did the right thing. Because if it me, I would do the same thing.
Mhm.
We justify our behavior based on society standards. Right and
Agreed.
wrong don't necessarily be black and white.
Agreed.
But as
But I
long
am
Mhm.
I don't mean to interject, but I am of the belief that right and wrong is an inherent thing that we both know.
But it might be an inherent
So you
thing.
know what's right and you know what's wrong. From the time, according to law, from the time you're like 4 or 5, you should know what's right or wrong. So I
No,
can't say that taking someone's life is right, because I believe in the 10 Commandments, which would tell me that taking one's life is definitely wrong.
but you are basing your belief system on what you were taught from a biblical standpoint. If you were put in a different environment and you were never taught that, you will never see nothing wrong with it. I mean,
I think hypothetically that we know what's right from wrong. That's why there's law. That's why there's jurisprudence to prove what is right from wrong.
There might be a general consensus of what's right from wrong. Might be a general consensus. But that changed. If you point of homosexuality a couple years ago, that was considered a mental illness. Over time, that has been stricken from the MS, right? And that's not really considered a mental condition like before. So what I'm saying to you is that right and wrong sometimes varies based on the culture and society that you are in. Yes, some people have something called a moral code, which the gentleman mentioned earlier. In others, it is up there 100%. For some people, it is very low. It don't take much for them to break society norms.
Understood.
You have someone that's suffering from a mental condition that might peak their biological imbalances within them to do certain acts in society. They may not see nothing wrong with the act in which they're committed.
Understood. Steve, I don't mean to stop you from your very interesting perspective, but we are 50 minutes until close and we still have some more questions for Chrisanne, but we will invite you back if we have another discussion like this so that you can continue the points that you were making.
No problem.
Yes, please. Thank you very much. We do have some more questions before we get to the final wrap up. The next question was for you, Mr. Hurdle. It was, what are some of the ways teachers can use positive reinforcement with the increased online learning platforms?
What are some of the ways that teachers can use positive reinforcement with the online learning platforms?
Positive reinforcement.
So of course, positive reinforcement is about giving a reward and repeating the encouragement or repeating the reward, the positive gain from doing good or from getting a result that is favored or desired. And so of course, we want to, people like to be mentioned. We're talking about the significance of having a voice. People like to be mentioned. And so people like children like to hear their name being called. Some children will be motivated by it, others will not be. But in addition to that, I think teachers can seek to have certain children who they want to participate more, say positive things to them, encourage them, because many children, they're low in confidence because they aren't getting encouragement at home, or because they don't feel like they're capable. And so being cheered or commended, I think there is limited to what the teacher can do or what the teacher feels like he or she can do online. They like to be mentioned. They like to be, you can mention them. You can do things like giving virtual stars, sending them emojis, emoticons. You can get them to help you lead the class or share a idea, or in one of the principles, maybe teaching the class for a moment. That could be a reinforcement for the child that's doing well. and he feels better, or he or she feels better about themselves. So there are limited ways we can positively reinforce them. It depends on the creativity and the imagination of the teacher. Just sit down and think, what can I do online? What can I give them online? What can I repeat online? So those are the words you want to use. What can I do? Encourage them. What can I do to repeat? What can I do to repeat and reinforce it? How can I make them feel better about themselves without properly spending money? There are little things you can do. Hope that helped.
Yes, please, it did. And sorry about that. And we are going to go to the Vice President of the Young Democrat, Shaquani. She had something that she wanted to state on that same question. Shaquani, over to you.
Okay. So the reason I wanted to jump in here on this area is because, well, I teach a free art class on a weekend and I live with a full-time teacher, and we both teach art. So one of the challenges that we had to overcome was how to get art taught online. If you thought math and English was difficult, try to think how to describe, to draw a face to a person. It is very challenging. We had to become more creative. We had to definitely think outside of the box, and we had to utilize the internet. We got videos from YouTube. We broke it down step by step. We actually had to come up with ideas for other things students could use to paint. So what we did was we looked for items around the house. We realized that, so we told the students anything that can make a mark could be used as paint. So students was given a project where they would have to find items around the house to paint this image. And they had to list the items that they use, because when we were locked down, there was no access to buying paint. There were no access to even going to stationery stores. So we had to become creative. Some students didn't have paper, so we had to think about what can you use besides the art pad. We let them use newsprint. We let them use the instead of cornflake boxes. We let them use exercise books. And at the end of it, she still had to submit marks, but we had to find ways for students to still complete the assessment required, but making it interested and using what they had at home. So when students sent in their work, they use toothpaste. Some students use nail polish. People took dirt and water. People use food dye. So we had to think outside of the box. And you couldn't tell that it wasn't paint, but it was not something that we would have usually done, because if we were at school or in person, we would have access to these materials. And when we went into lockdown at first, it happened so quickly. We didn't have time to get the students their art pads. We didn't have time to tell parents to get paints or crayons. We only had, oh, we're going to go on lockdown, and then we didn't open back up. So then we had to come up with ideas on the spot of how we can help students. With my Saturday class, what I did was we transitioned from being outdoors to virtual. And how that went for me was I created a package for them. So I would have decanting paints, brushes, everything, because I had their products already. And I dropped off the packages at their house. And then each week I would create an assignment and it would be delivered to them. And they would just send back in images with me, or sometimes we would go on Zoom and do the assignments together. One of the ways we navigating encouraging children to use online platforms and keeping them engaged. I did this particular project where I asked them to draw a bird. And of course, the first thing we heard was, I can't draw. The only thing I could draw is a stick man. That is the go-to line for every person who believes they can't draw, that they can only draw a stick man. And how I broke it down for them is that I went to basic shapes. We went to circle, triangle, oval. And by doing that, I used that to build their confidence, make them believe that they could do it. And that is something that I use constantly to help them believe in themselves. Because sometimes I constantly hear from students, at school, we're not really doing anything. We're just going online, or they just sending assignments. So they're not being engaged. They're not being intrigued in classes. So they're bored. and children get bored quickly. So keeping their attention span, you have to become creative. Like, you just have to pull things out of the hat. Even if you would have normally done it in person, you need to now figure out or navigate a new method to how to transfer it online and keep them engaged. LaShawna, that is the end of my point. You can go on to the next question.
Okay, and the final question before we go to the final comments is, what would you say to students who are going to be doing CXCs in the next couple of days? They are already feeling pressure. Some of them are already upset with what would have happened last year with these CXCs. We also have persons at BCC and University of the West Indies as well. I saw you, Shakwani, who are feeling the pressure of these exams, and who, some of them are getting anxious and some are almost at the point of going into depression. So what tips or tricks would you have for them? And then after that, we'll go into the final comments. Mr. Hurdle, you have to unmute your mic.
Thank you. Shameless plug. I do a program. It's called Exam Success, and I help persons from primary school. I've helped persons in common entrance, CXE, university as well, to mental focus, relaxation and stress, emotional management techniques, and mental focus, emotional management, and confidence. So that is something that I do as one of my services. It's a specialized program. However, you can only do so much. I mean, it's difficult. I think it's important to again chunk things down. I remember doing exams, especially when it came to the last days or even the night before the exam. The more you try to learn, the less you retain. So it's important to really chunk things down. I think if you have like at least 2 weeks before an exam, you can actually develop a study technique that can work for you, that can work to some extent. Of course, you can only reproduce, or you can only get all the information that you've put in. But there are different study techniques that you can use. In the midst of the study techniques you use, however, it's important to do some relaxation techniques to manage your stress. Breathe in, deep breathing, finding chunking your work study times into like 15-minute or half-hour segments, where after these half-hour segments, which you decide on very much specifically and intentionally, you decide to take 5-minute or 10-minute breaks in between. It's important to take time away from the work, because if you continue to stay at it, then you aren't going to be assimilating as much information as you can. So there's a technique I learned years ago about taking 15-minute intervals, studying for 15 minutes, and then taking 5-minute rests. Where you do anything other than work, you don't worry about work. It's good to have accountability groups where you have little study groups, a partner or two. One is good for some people, where you can bounce ideas off of them. But relaxation techniques, chunk down, don't go for sizes that are too big. Breathe in and try to sleep, get rest, eat.
Okay, thank you so much, Krishan. Before we go into the final comments, I'm just going to ask, does any member of the media or anyone have a final question they'd like to ask Mr. Hurdle? If they do, now is your opportunity to ask. We're going to give 2 minutes to see if anyone has a question. If not, we'll go into final comments and then wrap up. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions here. All righty. Going to give them 1 more minute. Members who are on the Zoom or on Facebook, if you have any questions, now is your chance to ask us. And Mr. Hurdle will answer the question as posed fail to do such, we will continue to move on to the final comments, and then we shall close this meeting. Okay, I don't see any questions. As you did a shameless plug, I'm also being reminded by the members of the tech team that we also have a shameless plug. So the Young Democrats, we do have a water drive going where we go into the constituencies across the island and give water. As you know, many constituencies at this time do not have water. So we're therefore asking you, if you have a case of water that you'd like to donate, or you'd like to make a donation, we're accepting all donations. No donation is too big or too small. Then you can drop it off to our George Street headquarters between the Monday to Friday between the hours of 10 to 3, or you can contact Shaquani Hunt. We will share her information off air that you can also make that donation. So that was the shameless plug. I don't see any more comments or queries. So Mr. Hurdle, your final comments.
Right. COVID has taken a toll on us all, from the general public to the frontline workers. People are back to work now, but the doctors, the nurses, mental health workers are all facing the effects of it. It has changed lives for everybody. And not to mention the people in leadership positions, from government to leaders of businesses, etc., etc. It's really taking a toll. People have to be creative. And so I say, yeah, people have to be creative about how they approach life, whether they are creative about how they choose to do business, also creative about how they take care of their mental health. And so, although we could not go to we can't go to parties anymore. We can watch parties online. We can watch parties on YouTube. You can watch the stay-at-home party if you're so inclined, right? You can watch concerts online. You can go outside and rub your feet, walk around your house. You can exercise around your house. You can rub your feet in the sand. You can do kitchen gardens. You can find ways of earning revenue that you never thought about before. I encourage people, when you're brainstorming, write your ideas down. Don't keep those, don't leave it to your memory. Write ideas down. I encourage people to know who you are. Stigma is real and is based on stigma, and pressure to conform is real, is based on peer pressure. The more you know who you are, the more you are certain about what you want, the consequences, outcomes of your decisions. You have greater motive, greater motivation, greater drive to go after your goals and your dreams. Know who you are, know what drives you, know what settles you, what relaxes you, what inspires you. Think about these things, write them down. Don't be afraid to reach out for help. Remember, if something is difficult, if it makes you vulnerable, if it takes a stretch, then it's the strongest ones who will be resilient enough to complete them, to finish them. It isn't the weak that reach out for help. The strong reach out for help. If you aren't reaching out for help because you think you're weak, then you really should, because you think you're strong and you can't, then there is a weakness in you. If you can't reach out for help because you think it will make you weak, you really aren't as strong as you thought. So be strong, be brave, be courageous, and remember that mental health is really about gaining control. Being balanced, being in control of your emotions, your mind, and being able to function better. You're better used to yourself, you're better used to your family, your community, your workplace. And for some people, their workplace may be a source of stress, their family may be a source of stress. So reach out for help. Don't be afraid to reach out for help. There are free services, government services, there are community health services in the polyclinics, the psychiatric hospital. So reach out. And myself, Insight Consulting, you can always reach out to me. I'm a clinical psychologist, certified life coach, and then also a clinical hypnotherapist. So you can reach out to me for help as well. I know there's a lot I could say, but I'll end it there, and I hope that this has been useful for you and all those watching and viewing.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go over to Shakwani for any final notices, and then we're going to wrap up.
Thank you very much, Lashana. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention. We definitely need to have a part 2 because this session was fantastic. I feel like we had a lot more questions, but we don't have that much time to go. So we're gonna have to do a part 2, a follow-up with you. Another thing I wanted to mention, something personally for me, is the mental is not only for mad people. And I think that is a stigma we need to break in Barbados because we associate going to the mental with being mad. And that is not true.
Agreed.
The
That is
psychiatric hospital, that
incorrect.
is.
Right, the psychiatric hospital. But as growing up, we knew it as the mental.
Yes.
But to be clear and unfiltered, it is not only for the so-called mad people. You can go there and get help. You can go there and talk to people, and it's okay to get help. It's okay to ask for help, and nothing is wrong with you. Even if you don't go there, nothing is wrong with you just reaching out to somebody. If you are afraid to say something anonymously. Somebody can still help you if they do not know who you are.
I was doing some,
Yeah, my phone
sorry,
is
I was doing some
dying.
finger snaps for you.
Your finger
Because
snaps.
that-
Cause her phone
Yeah.
to drop.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I am sorry.
No, what I also wanted to do is remind you of checking on your family, checking on your friends. In these times, I find that people are hiding behind their phones. They're hiding home because the Prime Minister said to stop home. That doesn't mean that you can't call your friends, you can't call your family, you can't do an online games night. You can do things to reach out to people. You can do things to make sure that your people are okay. And even if the person is a stranger, you can reconnect to a person that you haven't spoken to in 10 years and just ask them how they're doing. Yes, it may seem strange at the time, but sometimes people are looking for you to ask. They're looking for someone, not you per se, but they're looking for someone to ask them or to let them know that it's okay to not be okay. One other thing I want to remind you of, as Lashana said previously, the Young Democrats are currently doing a water drive. Persons were asking for my number. My number is 823-8946. You can contact me anytime, send a message, call, or you can drop off at the DLP headquarters. This weekend, we will be going into St. Peter. We will be heading into, I think it is Six-Man and Castle. If you would like to follow us on that journey, just indicate and you can hop on and join the bike wagon. Lashana, I'm going to hand it back over to you to just close off things.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. And to all who have been here with us, both on the Zoom and on Facebook, we'd like to thank you. And we'd like to thank you even more for staying with us as we had some technical difficulties that resulted in our late start. So we thank you for bearing with us. As you know how it is these days with technology, sometimes it works, sometimes it gives us a bit of problems. And we thank you for being here with us. Tonight, the Young Democrats had a discussion. It was under the theme of navigating mental health in a pandemic. We had with us clinical psychologists and clinical hypnotherapists, Christian Hurdle. We also had the Vice President of the Young Democrats, Shakwani Hunt. I am Lashana Griffith, Secretary of the Young Democrats. Thank you for joining us. Do have a good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Right. Good night, everybody.